I want to talk rut hunting with you. Like, say, muzzleloader to rifle season, that mid-October.
From 20th October to
the
Thanksgiving.
Prime, the favorite time.
That month time.
I've always loved being in Arkansas. Do you have a good story of, especially slip hunting and killing a good buck, whether it's around a bluff or around one of those benches or anything like that, around that time frame? One that comes to mind that's memorable?
About 5 years ago. That buck right there. One right straight behind me.
Okay.
All rack.
Oh, yeah.
8-point that's heavy frame. Got long G2s. That deer, I don't remember the whole situation on it, but it was later in that muzzleloader season, like the 6th or 7th day of it. And it had rained that night. And it had rained that morning hard. And I didn't even hunt that morning. And I knew it was supposed to quit about 9 or 10 o'clock. So I went ahead and drove out into the mountains, sat in my truck till it quit raining hard. And I knew I'd found rubs from this deer during bow season. And I decided, well, I'm going to slip hunt this area because it's wet. It was still drizzling, but not hard rain. And it's damp. And I thought, if I can get I've killed more deer than that one in that area. But that one comes to mind because you just asked. And like I said, it was just a few years ago. And I took and got the wind where it needed to be. And I was on top of the mountain where I started, where I parked my truck. I went over the side of the mountain to the second bench. And, I mean, the ground to it, you can't hardly walk on. It's just steep. But I got to that second bench, and I could see another little bench below me, about 100 yards below me. But I knew they could be on either one of them. I thought, well, if them deer has been prowling all night, right now would be a good time. They're either going to be bedded or... So anyway, I just started slip hunting that bench. And I don't remember exactly what all took place other than I'd go a little bit and I'd watch, like I talked about earlier. I'd look over the hill and I'd ease back and I'd slip a little bit farther. And I'd slipped around there a little ways. I'd probably been gone from where I took off from probably an hour and a half because it was about 10:30 or 11 o'clock that day. Might even been a little later than that. I don't remember the exact time, but I just remember I was slipping along and something caught movement out in front of me on this little narrow bench. And I just remembered seeing something and I just froze. But I was right by a tree and I just kind of leaned up against it and just stood there. But I could still see the hillside and that bench below me. And I kept looking at it, but I kept looking back where I'd seen that movement. I thought, I'm going to stay here a little bit. I didn't sit down and I just stayed leaned up against that tree. And then about that time I saw movement again. And I thought, what is it I'm seeing? I can see something move, but I ain't sure what it is. Maybe a squirrel. And then finally it moved again. And I saw about this much of bone, horn, moving. And then it moved again and I could see its full rack. And what had happened, this deer was bedded. And it either saw me or heard me or something other, and it stood up when I saw that movement. And I just crouched in next to that tree there when I seen those horns, and I got my muzzleloader up, and then I could make out the deer, but all I could see was its head and its horns and its neck down to where it joined its shoulder. And I thought, and the deer was looking towards me. I thought, it's now or never. It was probably 60, 70 yards out there to the deer. I thought, it's now or never. So the best I could, I leaned into that tree and steadied my shot. Pulled the trigger, the smoke bolt. I still use black powder in my guns. And it's, what it looks like when you shoot. And that wet, damp, misty day. And when the smoke cleared, I didn't see nothing. I couldn't see a deer kicking. I couldn't see nothing. I thought, well, I'm going to ease on out there. I reloaded my muzzleloader. Eased on, went easing that away, and I got about 20 yards, and I seen something out there, and the deer was laying on his side. He'd fell right where I shot him. I'd hit him right at the base of the neck, right where it joined his shoulder. And the best I could tell, he had bedded there. He'd been there a while because his bed underneath him was dry. So he just stood up. And whether he saw me or heard, but he knew something was going on, but he didn't, with the conditions, he didn't know what was going on. He stood up and gave me a shot. And then it took me the rest of the day to get him out of there. But I didn't break him down, but I just took my time and I knew an old wagon road on around the hill. I took him around that old wagon road, then made my time making him back up to where I could drag him back to where the old road was where I'd parked on. But that was a pretty memorable slip hunt.
Now, I love that. And the reason why I wanted to bring that up or have you tell a story, kind of get us into talking that late October, November hunting is, of course, you're getting the pre-rut, rut, and then kind of getting to the later part of the rut by the end of October. Is with that hunting style, would you say last, say, 10 years or so, during that time of the year, is it a mix between you hunting in a tree stand and in slip hunting or hunting on the ground, or is it more leaning towards the slip hunting?
It's probably about half and half. It just depends on conditions, and the terrain has a lot to do with it. But I'd say I do about half and half. And I do a lot of stand hunting where I'm not up in a tree too. In those steep mountains, a lot of times you're better off if you get a good vantage point, especially like in the head of a holler we was talking about. In a rifle or muzzleloader instant, if you got the thermals coming up, of course you like to be there at daylight too, but a lot of times that ain't a good place to set at daylight if that thermal's taking your scent right down to where you think the deer are going to cross. So a lot of times I won't hunt the same place the first hour or two of daylight so I don't want to be moving a stand. So I may set somewhere else for an hour or two. Then as the sun breaks out, if it does break out, then I may move around that hillside or off in the holler a bit where I can see the head of that holler, where I can see a couple of little benches, or like I was talking about where sometimes I think they travel those heads of hollers. And I'll just get me a good place, set on the ground, take me a cushion, and get comfortable and set on the ground. I've killed a lot of deer doing that too. But I consider that stand hunting, just like cutting out of a tree. I don't consider that slip hunting because I'm going to a spot and I'm going to stay there until I leave. Whereas slip hunting, I'll slip hunt and I may sit there 5 minutes. If I'm seeing deer, I may sit there 5 hours once I sit down while I'm slip hunting. If everything feels right and I see deer traveling, I see a doe or two travel. And you can kind of do that sitting in the stand, but usually when I do that on stand hunting on the ground, I've made my mind up. I'm going to stay here till noon or stay here till 11 o'clock or whatever. When I make my mind in going that. When I'm slip hunting, I have no time frame on nothing.
Is there anything else that you'll do during that October, November hunt that you won't do at other points of the season? Like how you like to hunt rutting deer or pre-rut deer? Is there anything you do different or any slight different approach?
Yeah, a little bit. I'd say when I know, like, especially here, it seems like most of the doe chasing takes place here from about the 10th of November to I'm not saying they don't do it other times. I've seen them chasing does in 20th of October, running them hard. But I'd say that a lot of it happens from the 10th of November till after Thanksgiving. And that time, a lot of times I'll hunt more where I think the does are going to be more than I think where the bucks are going to travel. But it kind of coincides with each other too. Because that time of year, and I'd probably do more stand hunting then than any other time, is that time frame from first few days of November till after Thanksgiving. I probably hunt stands more then than any other time. Although I will slip hunt if the conditions are right and I'm wanting to cover some terrain during that same time. But I'll probably do more stand hunting there than later in the season. And like I do a lot of slip hunting during that muzzleloader season because I think that's when bucks are making a lot of their sign and whether they're making scrapes or traveling through corridors or whatever.
Do you ever use calling much at all for deer hunting, rattling or grunting or anything like that?
I don't do much rattling. I have a little rattle bag I keep with me all the time. I use it once in a while, and my time frame for using it is usually most of the time is in that same. It's from about I've done it a little bit in bow season, but it's usually in the October part of bow season when I do it, not the early part. And I rattle some usually during our first muzzleloader hunt, which is somewhere around the 18th to 20th October till the last weekend in October, a 9-day hunt. But grunting, I use it quite a bit. To give you an example, this pack frame buck here where I told you I killed him, 15 minutes before he showed up, I'd done several series of grunts, some of the tendon grunts with the long brrr. Whether he was coming to that, I don't know, because it was probably 10 minutes or so before he showed up. But I'd done it on and off throughout the day. I'd probably done it. I'd been there, since daylight. I might have done it 8 or 10 times all morning. So you don't know if they come to that or where they were coming through there anyway. But I do grunt when I'm setting. And I also grunt when I'm slip hunting some. Just depending on what terrain I'm in and where I'm at. I get to a good spot, I may stop there and I may sit down on a log or a rock and I may grunt a few series and then just sit there for an extra 10 or 15 minutes, see if anything shows up. And I've killed a few deer doing that.
I probably should have asked you this earlier in the podcast, but I know you're born and raised in this area, always hunting the mountains. What do you love about hunting the mountains for whitetails?
It's probably in my DNA to start with, because I grew up in the mountains, started hunting in the mountains, started squirrel hunting and coon hunting when I was just a young kid. But I think the challenge of it intrigues me more than anything. Just trying to narrow down these places like we're talking about. My wife even accuses me that. She said, "You think about hunting all the time?" I said, "Yeah, I do." So